What's up, YouTube? So today we're talking Microsoft PowerApps and Microsoft PowerAutomate. It used to be called Microsoft Flow. It's 2023. If you're not using those two applications now, you need to start doing it. You need to start having automation in your workflows with what you do. So if you're not using this in your workplace, highly recommend it. We're going to go through a very simple tutorial on how to make a SharePoint site, a SharePoint list, tie it to a Power App, and then have some automation tied to it so it automatically emails you. It's going to be awesome. Hope you guys are looking forward to it. See you after the jump. Alright, so my team had a Microsoft team, and with every Microsoft team there's a SharePoint site tied to it. This is just the default setup for the SharePoint site. No one's been on the SharePoint version of the team. Really all it is right now is just document management. And so you'll see that nothing's really done here. But if you go to the site contents on the left side of the screen, if you click on that, you'll see everything that comprises your SharePoint site, including the documents that you see in your Microsoft team. Now with this, you'll see your site pages, your lists, your documents, photos, anything that's in the site itself. So we're going to create a new SharePoint list. So we just go to New, List, and you can actually create one from an Excel, a CSV, but we're just going to do a blank list here. And what we're going to build today is just a new contractor form. So you can give it a description if you'd like. You can show it in the site navigation. I'm not going to do that though. Otherwise, it would show up on the left side of the screen there in the bar. And here's a basic new list, and you'll see that it's part of the site contents here. So now when we go to our list, we're going to see it has a default column called title. You can rename this. It will actually rename itself back to title in PowerApps, so it's kind of annoying, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But we want to add columns here, and you have different choices on what you can add. Pretty much everything I want to add in this list is really just a simple line of text. You know, when a new contractor comes on board, what kind of information do we need to pull from them? And again, make your list for whatever project you're working on, right? You know, what's relevant to you. Again, this is just an example. So I need the new contractor's name, who their manager is, manager's email, etc. So I'm going to add those columns to the list. And then once we build the Power App, it's going to be a front end to actually compiling data into this SharePoint list. Now, if I click on Site Pages, or Pages on the left here, I'm going to see all the pages that comprise my SharePoint site. So I made a new page, and I titled it Onboarding, and this is where I'm going to house the Power App. So what you see in front of you is an example of a Power App where a new hire can come on. This is, again, my scenario, but make a Power App that's relevant to you. New hire can come on, they can put in their information, attach any relevant data that we need, and those attachments are going to be automatically emailed to me, and then all the information is going to be housed in a secure SharePoint list, where I, as a admin of this team and SharePoint site, I can manage the permissions on that list, so only, you know, admins can see what people are uploading, right? So if there's any private information, home address, etc., we can keep that secure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this a 2-column part of the page. So I'm in edit mode on my SharePoint site, and after I do that, I'm actually going to add a Power App to the page. And once we add a Power App, we just search Power App. You'll see Microsoft Power App there. If you click that, it's going to say, hey, what Power App do I need to reference? What's the link or app ID? And so after we build our Power App, we're going to add that ID to this link bar here, and it's going to pull in the new Power App that we're making. So at this point, we want to go to Power Apps. So if you hit the waffle in the top left, you can find your Power App application in Office 365. And once you're at the Power Apps homepage, you'll see that there's a lot of default templates you can use, or you can create a blank app from scratch. If you look at the SharePoint template, that default template app, it's okay, but it wasn't as customized as I'd like it, and you can edit it, but for the sake of simplicity in this tutorial, we're actually going to do a blank app. But I will show you all what this looks like, and basically we can choose the list that we want to tie to with this Power App template, and it will pull in the default SharePoint list Power App template. So with the default template, overall, I think it's kind of clunky. It basically just shows the list overall, and you can click the plus button, add stuff to your list, you can refresh it. but it's going to show everyone what's in the list. And with this onboarding Power App I'm making, people are going to input private stuff, so I don't want this default template. So I'm going to create one from scratch. So back at the Power App homepage, I'm going to click on blank app, and we have three choices: Canvas, Dataverse, or a Power Pages website. I'm going to choose the Canvas app, and you can choose the format of phone or tablet. I like phone just for this scenario. It just makes a thinner kind of application screen. This is the new contractor input form, so I'm going to create that, and it's going to be a blank phone-shaped app. And what PowerApps is really useful for, so if you're running Office 365 from your phone, you can run this app really easily on your phone. Fits the screen very well. The first thing you want to do is on the left here, you're going to see all of these options. We're going to need to connect to data, right? So this is a blank template. There's no defaults here, so we really want to tell PowerApps to go to the specific SharePoint site we were just at. And if you were just there, it's going to remember you were there. And so it's going to tie to your email. That's tied to Office 365. I'm going to find my list on the right here. This is the new contractor form list that I've created. I'm going to say connect to that data. And now it is connected in this Power App. And you'll see that on the left here, where we can add data. Now, if I go to the little plus button up here, we can add stuff to this app. I'm going to add a edit form widget to this app, and it's going to say, hey, what do I need to connect to, right? We've already connected the data to this Power App, so we just need to reference the data source, which is that new contractor form list that we've created in SharePoint, right? And now it's going to pull up basically all the columns into different input tiles for someone to put in the information that would go into the list. I'm also going to click on the add button, and I'm going to go to media and add an image. I made a little header, a custom header that I want to add on the top to make this thing look cool, add some company logos, etc. For this new contractor form. And so I'm going to add that to this, upload it, and then fit it to the top. So I think I mentioned earlier in the video that your first column in a SharePoint list is always named title, and you can't really change it. And really, it's not easily done in PowerApps. So even if I try to rename this new contractor name, or whatever you want it to be, it's going to default back to title later on, even after I save it, which is pretty annoying. So what I do is I actually just make the font white, hide that word title, that's always going to be there, and just pull in my own text that looks similar to the rest, and I put the right thing that I want. Because in the list, I don't care what the column name is. I'm going to know as an admin what it's supposed to be. Also, if you don't like doing that, you can just delete the first column altogether, and then only use columns 2 through X or 2 through N, right? So you don't have to use the first column, but it is always the same title, which is sort of annoying. But if there is a way around this and you know about it, please tell me in the comments below on how to fix this issue. So in PowerApps, if you're on the tree view on the left, you can see Form 1 in Image 1, Screen 1, and then App above that. And basically, this is a hierarchy of everything in our Power App. Form 1 is basically the form that's tied to the SharePoint list. And you're going to see from top down, in order, what's in our app. And what we want to do now is we want to add a Submit button. And so we do not want to just unlock it and add it, because then it's going to throw it on top, and then we just can't move it and see it, right? Because it's part of that app itself. We need to go outside of this in the tree view. So let's see how to do that. So if we are in the tree view here, again, we can see App, Screen 1, Image 1, Form 1. It's top down in order of hierarchy, right? So we have our image on the very top of the screen, and then we have our form. So you'll see on the right, we can edit Form 1 if we click on it in the tree view. And if we click Edit Fields, you can see all the fields that comprise Form 1. You can also add a field, and it will add a default field. It may be a field that's in the SharePoint list, but all of these are default, right? That are part of that SharePoint list that's already there. None of these fields are what I want, though. I want to add a custom field, so I'm going to hit the 3 dots to the right. I'm going to say add a custom card, and it's going to add that to the bottom of the hierarchy in Form 1. So it's going to be below the attachments that you see on the screen. And once this is done, we can add a button widget to data card 1. Now that that's there, if you go to the tree view, see Form 1, you're going to see the data card at the bottom. Now when I go to add, I'm going to add a button, and it will be below the attachment. So I can scroll down and actually see that button. And then we can rename the button to submit, right? Because after you add all your information, you're going to want to submit the form. So we definitely want to change this wording, the text, from button to submit. And right now there's no code behind this button. It's just a widget that's just sitting there. Doesn't do anything. I can click submit, nothing will happen. But we'll see button 2 on there. If we go to the settings up here, you'll see on select. Right now on select equals false. So if I press it or select it, nothing happens. It's just false, right? So we're gonna have to add some code or some information on what we want the button to do when we press it. So again, we're going to change that from false, and we're going to put in some PowerAutomate code to make this right. So we're going to say submit form. It will automatically know what you're trying to do here, so it'll give you tooltips on what it thinks you want. So submit form is right, and then you'll see that the name in the tree view to the left, you'll see that the name of our form is Form 1. So if I start typing Form 1, it's going to say, hey, I think you want Form 1 here. If I were to put Form 2, it'll give me some red squiggly lines. It'll say Form 2 doesn't exist, so that's not going to work. And what I want to do here is I want to save as I go. So you'll see that Form 2 doesn't work, and Form 1 is the only object that's in this app that I can use. And so yes, when you click the button now, it's going to submit the form, but it won't refresh at this point. So we're going to put a semicolon, and then we're going to say new form, and then say Form 1. So when I press the button, not only does it submit the information, but it also refreshes the app, so it removes all the data that someone just put into it, right? Otherwise it would just sit there, because what if you have to add more than one? So that submit button now does two things. It puts the information in the SharePoint list and refreshes the app, so it's blank, so you can add another thing. Next, I'm going to add an image under this attach file icon. So I'm looking at the tree view, I'm looking at the attachments data card there, and I'm going to add a image. And again, it's a hierarchy view. So if I click on image, it's going to add it into that data card. And then I have a custom image I made in PowerPoint. I'm just going to stick it in here, and it's going to tell folks when they look at the app, hey, please attach this Excel file with all your personal information, right? And default size limits on PowerApps is 10 megabytes. You can change the defaults, I think, up to 50 megabytes in PowerApps. So typically it's 10 megabytes, just a reminder when you're trying to attach very large files. But for this, a simple, document with information should be just fine. Now I'm going to save my app, hit the little disk icon on the top right, and then there's a little play button. You can preview your app or test your app. And when I preview this app right now, there's no data to display. There's nothing to display because when the app starts up, there's no code to tell it, hey, let's refresh this app. Let's refresh this screen so we can input information. So we're going to have to add some code to make this refresh. So again, when I test the app, I don't see any data. So if I click on Form 1 and I go to the setting for item here in the top left, I'm going to see there's no code there. I want to put in some code. It's going to be defaults. And then once it starts up, what does Form 1 default to? Well, what's the name of the data source? It is new contractor form. So it's going to know already what you want. So I'm just going to add that code. And then now when I preview the app, everything that I see here should show up. And here we go. So now we see that in that card, we can see everything we need, everything we want for input into that SharePoint list, along with that submit button. So looking pretty good. So at this point, I want to save and publish the app. So you'll see published in the top right. I'm going to publish this current version. And then if I hit the back button, I'm going to say leave. Yep. I'm going to see my PowerApps on the bottom here. I'm going to see the new contractor form. If I hit the three dots, you can do a lot of things here. You can share it with folks, and I want this app available to everyone in my organization. So I'm just going to say everyone. I'm going to click on everyone within this SharePoint site or team, and I'm going to say don't email them. I think that's annoying, so I'm just going to say share. I don't need to email the whole organization that I've made a PowerApp. But there's also other things you can do here. You can add to teams. You can monitor your PowerApp. You can go to settings, see details, etc. And you can also get the link to your PowerApp and then the PowerApp code that we're going to add to our SharePoint site so it knows where to pull from. So if you go to details, you're going to see a QR code, app ID, and this app ID right here is what we're going to put on our SharePoint site. So again, in that onboarding page that we built in SharePoint, it's a simple page where we're just going to put some PowerApps for new employees to put their information in. I'm going to hit edit. You're going to see that little PowerApp widget there. It's going to say, hey, what's your app ID? I now have it because we just built an app. And we're going to stick that in, and it will automatically refresh into that app. I'm going to hit publish, and voila, there we go. There's our new app that we just created in PowerApps. And someone can come in, they can put in information, and it's going to populate that form. And that's awesome. But the next step, of course, after the form is populated, how do those attachments get to me or get to someone we want them to get to, right? Obviously, we can manually go into the list and pull them out, but we're going to want to create some automation to automatically send it to people we want to send it to. So back to the PowerApps really quickly. As I told you, the first line or first column in your SharePoint list is always just title, and you try to change it and it just defaults back to the same thing. I'm just going to quickly make the font white, hide it, pull in some text here. It's under display. It's called text label. That's the widget you want to pull in into your tree view, of course. And I'm just going to name it what I want to name it so people know what to put there. Now from the Office 365 site, hit the waffle, hit Microsoft Power Automate, and you're at the Power Automate homepage. And with Microsoft Power Automate, oh man, there's so many templates. There's so much learning on this page. There's just so much capability with Power Automate. But if you go to My Flows, you're going to see your cloud flows, desktop flows, and other flows that are shared with you. For this tutorial, we're making a cloud flow, and it's a automated flow that's tied to the list. So whenever somebody has some input, they add an attachment. That attachments gets emailed to the right people. So we're going to create new flow. Flow name, just name it whatever you want to name it so you know what it is. And we're going to say new contractor form. And when you select a flow trigger, we're going to say SharePoint when an item is created, and we're going to hit create. So we are not using a default template here. We're actually creating from scratch and choosing what that trigger is. So you're going to want to put your site address in. And again, if you've been to that site recently, Microsoft will say, hey, this is a SharePoint site, right? And hey, this is a list from that SharePoint site. So it's very simple to create that initial flow. And then we're going to add continuous steps to ensure that whenever an item is added to this list, it gets emailed to the right people. So we click on new step. Basically, we can add operations, and it goes in order from top down. That's how this automation works. So for the next operation, we're going to search SharePoint. We're going to find some actions that you can use with SharePoint. And so we're going to look up get attachments. And we're going to click on that, tied to SharePoint, and it's going to say, okay, so when an item is created in that list, where do you want to get the attachments from? Well, we want the attachments from the new contractor form that we just created. And under ID, if you scroll down, you're just going to say, use the list item ID. So in order of, 1 through N, 1 through X, what have you, as you put information in that form, it's going to pull those specific attachments from the newest part of the form. All right, and then we're going to add another step, and we're going to add a variable. So just type variable, and you'll see here there's many different types of variables we can add. We're going to initialize a variable, right? And we want it to be an array, so we can attach multiple things within that variable. We're going to put all of our attachments within that variable. So again, choose array. No need to add an initial value, and then on to the next step. And now we're going to hit control, and we're going to create some conditions here. We're going to say apply to each, and then select an output from previous steps. I'm going to find body. I'm going to add an action within this. I'm going to say get attachments and get attachment content. All right, where are we getting the attachment content from? It's going to be that list. So if we add more than one file, we're going to get all the files, put them in this array, right? So it's based on most up-to-date list ID. So we're just going to click ID there. And then we'll add the get attachments ID. And just a reminder, those are two different types of ID there when you add those to the get attachment content. Now we want to add another item. We want to search variable, find that variable, and within the variable function, we're going to append an array variable, and we're going to choose the array variable we made, which was the multiple attachments variable. That's what we titled it. And under value, this is where we're going to add some code to this apply to each function. So this is what's known as a JSON object, and we're going to add some code. We're going to say name, and then we're going to find here, we're going to find display name, and then right underneath that, we're going to put a comma, and we're going to say content bytes, and then we're going to find attach content. And what this is doing is it's finding the name of what we attached and actually making sure that it gets attached to the email that we'll send ourselves later. So everything should be good to go there at this point. And we can see that an item's created. It's going to get those attachments, put them in an array, and then for every attachment we add, it's going to put that into an array, and it's going to show us the name of the attachment, and it's going to attach the attachment content. But then what do we do with it? Well, we're going to email it to ourselves, so we are going to add a new step to do just that. So now we want to search for Outlook in our next item, and we're going to actually send an email. So you'll see all the things you can do with Outlook here. We're going to find an action that says send an email. We're going to type in who we want to send it to, and there's a lot of options here, but I'm just going to send it to myself just to do some testing. I'm going to add my subject, what I want the subject to say once the automated email is sent, and then I'm going to add what I want to say in the body, and under attachments, I'm going to add multiple attachments, the array that we made that comprises all the attachments that goes into the form. At this point, we can save our flow, and to test it, we can just go to our PowerApp, add random stuff in there, attach whatever, pictures, files, doesn't matter. Add multiple attachments and try it out. So I'm just going to add some random stuff here, test, attach some files, and when we go back to our flow, we'll see if it succeeded or not. It'll say the status, when it ran, and if it was successful. And then we can also check our email, and we should see an automated email. Side note, sometimes in your body of your mail, you have to put BR to break between lines of text. Sometimes you don't. I actually don't know why it is kind of finicky at times. But I digress. Here is an example of the automated email with included attachments, and you can see it was successful. I hope you enjoyed this video. If it helped you, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.